the environment is the single most important thing. How a child interacts with their environment is the single most important thing in their nervous system health and brain development. And I absolutely agree because we are always immersed in an environment of some sort. An environment is not neutral, right? It either is
No.
contributing to nervous system regulation or it's contributing to dysregulation. And it depends on that individual nervous system of your child or you. That's why it's so important to pay attention to our environments, what's in
Mhm.
our environments, and how our environments are communicating with our nervous system. Are they triggering
Absolutely.
us or our children, or are they offering restoration for us?
Hey, Mama, are you feeling like you're walking on eggshells around your little one? Does every day feel like a battleground from breakfast to bedtime? You're not alone. If meltdowns, sensory sensitivities, and communication challenges are turning your days upside down, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Sensory Savvy Mama, the podcast for moms raising neurodivergent little ones. I'm your host, Victoria, and I get it. I've been there. The endless research, the frustrating appointments, the feeling like no one understands what you and your child are going through. Here, we ditch the cookie cutter advice and embrace the power of understanding your child's unique sensory needs within the context of your family. We'll dive into practical strategies, expert insights, and real life stories to help you create a calmer, more connected family life. Because you deserve to feel empowered, not exhausted. Let's ditch the overwhelm and discover the joy of raising a sensory kid in a neurodiverse family. You ready? Let's go. And here we go. Jenna, I am so glad that you are joining us for the podcast today. I'm so happy to have you as a guest. We met, gosh, I was trying to think how long ago. It feels like years ago, but it was just in
Mm,
the
6 months ago,
summer,
maybe?
fall, where we did a speaking engagement together on supporting a local daycare and their processes for supporting sensory kids and the sensory needs of all kids. That was a really fun experience to touch base and connect with you, especially both being local, because so much of our world we connect virtually with people that we never see in the flesh. So tell us a little bit about you because you are a landscape architect. And
Yes.
that's not a normal connection that people make with neurodivergent and sensory kids. Tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
what you do and how did you get to this place?
First of all, Victoria, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to connect with you. I'm a landscape architect. I've been for about 25 years now designing sensory based, nature filled play and learning spaces for kids of all abilities. My focus for 22 of those 25 years has been on neurodiversities. It started with understanding autism and how do we create places that support children with autism. And then that expanded to ADHD, sensory processing disorders, all these, the neurodiversities, the big umbrella. And so I've been doing it a long time, have been creating nature play areas, sensory gardens, outdoor schoolyards, outdoor classrooms, and green schoolyards where kids of all abilities play and learn together. One of the wonderful discoveries in my career is that when we create places that support the neurodiverse experience, it actually supports everybody because it's based in our nervous system health and supporting our nervous system to get out of that survival mode that most of us are in most of the
Right.
time
Yeah.
and getting in a place where our nervous system is balanced and open and feeling good so that kids can be in a place where they learn and connect and play and all of those wonderful things that kids are supposed to do in childhood. It's been so fun. I work with parents, I work in backyards, I work with schools in school grounds, early learning centers. So the big, like, wherever kids are is where I love to work.
Since this is a podcast, let's do a little bit of imagery and talk about a space. I think a lot of our listeners are thinking you design playgrounds, but not really. So give us some
Yeah.
visual imagery here that we can get on board with what you do and how you
Yeah.
do the pictures in your presentation and the way you designed your own backyard to support
Yeah.
your girls is just absolutely amazing. And I want to give people a rich picture that they can hold in their mind as they're listening.
The term that's shared widely in schools and early learning is nature play. So, if parents are familiar with the term nature play, that's really what this is based in. Nature play is creating nature filled places that support play and learning. So think about, I'm not talking about playgrounds. We're not talking about the plastic and steel structures. We are talking about climbing logs, boulders, mud kitchens, little forts, berry bushes, nature looms, and sensory paths. And again, some of these things require more explanation on what they are. So let me take one example, sensory path. Kids always want a way to move through a place. Pathways guide them through, say, an outdoor classroom or a backyard. A sensory path is a pathway made out of different surfacing materials like flagstone, brick pavers, and log cookies, like little slices of logs set in like pavers. All sorts of different materials comprise this path that it's a lot different than walking on concrete or gravel. It gives
Right.
a totally different experience. In the multisensory aspect, like the visuals of it, sound of it, depending on where they're walking, the log cookies are going to sound different under their feet than the flagstone. It's really thinking about all of these different aspects that go into creating a play space. How can we really be cognizant of the sensory experience of this? Another example is a mud kitchen. A mud kitchen is a little outdoor setting that is reminiscent of a kitchen. There's like shelves and countertops and whatnot, a sink, hopefully some water, where kids can make mud pies and potions and work with all sorts of different materials and tools and imaginative play. There's no outcome per se. It's just flow play. The multisensory experience of a mud kitchen is not just about touch. It's not just about sight, but it's about everything. Mud kitchens provide stimulation for 8 sensory systems. We all have 8 sensory systems, the 5 classic, and then the vestibular and proprioception, those 2 movement-based system, and then interoception. And so something as simple as a mud kitchen can support a child holistically in terms of supporting their nervous system.
Yeah. Let's get into that a little bit, 'cause this is like the big background of why we do the work that we do, right?
Yeah.
Let's connect it back to why is this so important to have access to spaces like this and play like this for neurodivergent
Mm.
kids?
Kids are sensory beings. Their purpose is using their nervous system to understand themselves, the people around them, and their environments. And so it's really important from during childhood. We talk about different age ranges as being really important for brain development, that sort of thing. But there's so much happens within the course of childhood. 0 to 7, 0 to 12, 0 to 18, 0 to 100. We need nature. We need to be stimulated in the ways that nature gives us. Nature is the most perfect form of sensory experience, sensory stimulation. And so when we as parents can create a little nook in the backyard that gives our kids a place to go be outside, to go play outside and learn outside and to interact with nature, then we are giving them a place to really give their nervous system the nutrition it needs to grow and develop in the way that it's meant to. Right? So it's brain development, it's nervous system health, it's social, emotional health. Like we can create, I talked about the mud kitchen. If you have this little space where kids can do activities like that, then they connect with one another. Then you can go out and connect with them too. And so there's much benefit happens when we create a little nook in our backyard, say for a fort or a mud kitchen, or having the hose out on a hot summer day. It can be very simple and very easy. Many parents are already doing this. And so just like when you do that, there's a bigger kind of invisible reason why and benefits that come from any time spent outside.
Sure. Sure. So a lot of our audience actually, I've had this question come up a lot is, especially with swings and different things like that. I live in an apartment or I rent and I can't
Mhm.
create this backyard experience. And it's not safe to go to a wide open park when I have a child who wanders off or elopes really quickly. What are some ideas that we can come up with or that you've suggested for people who like live in an apartment and just have a balcony?
Yeah.
What's a way that they can access some of these things? Or what are some ways you are working with trying to get more of these natural spaces into our communities? Like parks are great. We love
Mm.
parks and
Mhm.
playgrounds, but having access to nature, especially if you're in more of an urban setting, what are some recommendations that you have for families like that?
For families that live in apartments or even in condos where they don't own the space to do something with, or they're working with a balcony, or they don't have any outdoor space at all, build a fort with your child. A little nook. It could be out on a balcony or could be inside. Those pillow forts, or use the kitchen table and chairs and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So it doesn't have the potency that nature can bring to it, but it certainly does if you're out on the balcony, right? The fresh air, the
Yeah.
sunlight.
Yeah.
You might have some plants out there. I always talk with people about where and how can you create a little edible garden space. Like it just takes a
Yeah.
single pot, right? A pot
Yeah.
on your kitchen counter or out on the balcony. Plant some herbs. Herbs are super easy. What does your kid, what would they be open to trying? Cherry
Yeah.
tomato? Can you plant a cucumber seed and have it vine along your railing out on your balcony? There's like miniature sunflowers. So there's lots of different opportunities. You can go to the local hardware store, find some organic seeds and play with a few things. And even if you just had some Dixie cups
Yeah.
of potting soil and some seeds of different varieties and see what happens. The process itself is actually really powerful for kids, especially kids with neurodiversities who may not feel like they have control of their life. A lot of times they feel out of control for one reason or another. But when we give them an opportunity to plant a seed, water it, watch it grow, pick the flower and share it, or if it fruits, eat the fruit and share it with your family or neighbors, it puts the child in the role of caretaker. They are the nurturer instead of the one being nurtured all the time. So
Yeah.
they have the control. And it is such a powerful way to connect kids with nature. Again, it can happen from the comfort of your kitchen window. So it doesn't always have to be outside.
Such a great
There's really,
point. You touched on this too, and I think so many parents will relate. My child needs so much help. So trying to create a space where they have a sense of agency or autonomy, like I just don't have the vision for it. But you just gave a beautiful one of having a little Dixie cup plant. We picked up one of those old wash basins, filled it with dirt, and she just digs in it. And there's not anything in it right now except for dirt. But when we go out for a walk, she'll pick up like a pine cone or a stick or something and bring it back and add it. And something that's simple, like I don't care if she makes a mess. Like I don't care if the flowers get pulled up or something. Just having a space where she can do that has been huge. There was a time when she was running away more. And so being able to go out on the balcony and play in the dirt, and I knew that she was safe, was really great. So thank you for that idea. That was really
yeah.
helpful with the Dixie cups. One of the ones that keeps coming back now that plants are starting to come out is the chocolate cosmos that you talked about in your
Yeah.
presentation. I keep looking for them because I want cosmos that smell like chocolate.
I have a funny story. When we bought our place, our kids, we have twins, we're a year and a half old. And so I started building a sensory garden out in our backyard. One of the plants that goes into it, and it's not hardy in where we live, right? And where we live in the Pacific Northwest, but it's an annual. So we can have it in a pot or whatever and, extend the life as we can. But so I had a chocolate cosmos in the sensory garden. And one of my kids' friends was over, and I think they were like 5 years old at the time. And they're playing around, and I see her kind of whisk by this chocolate cosmos. And a cosmos is like a daisy, right? And a chocolate cosmos is like dark brown. And when you smell it, it smells like chocolate, literally smells like chocolate. And so when she went by it, she caught that whiff. And then I saw her go back to it. She's yelling at my kids, "You guys come over here and smell this flower." I remember this little girl's face. She was so incredibly excited that something in the garden could smell like chocolate. It was such a surprise to her. That's just one of the ways that you can bring nature into your balcony.
Yeah.
Potted plant. There's scented geraniums that there's like dozens and dozens of scents of scented geraniums, like rose, orange, and chocolate mint and chocolate. And surprising things that when your child interacts with them, rubs the leaves and smells their fingers, they get these surprising, incredible, and oftentimes very soothing aromas. That's one of the ways that you can bring nature into your child's play settings through these wonderful sensory plants.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of the kids I've worked with over the years who were picky eaters and sensitive to smell. Smell is always associated with food and how we create this negative association. And so having these opportunities in play to go out, not when we have to eat something, but when we're outside. So it's not quite as overwhelming and you have choice and that autonomy and agency to engage. And I think one of the things that's really helpful to like to bring up again and reiterate over and over is just when we connect to our senses, that really helps establish that brain body connection. And I think so often in our culture, we have these expectations socially on kids of how they're supposed to behave, and that causes that brain body disconnect. And so when we allow them to tap into their senses and when we give them opportunities to engage in sensory play and nature based play, that reestablishes that connection in a healthy way that isn't overpowering, that gives them autonomy and agency and helps them start to make sense of the world around them and organize their thoughts and get into more positive feedback loops. And then instead of the negative feedback loops of this is how we have to behave, this is how we have to respond, this is the way that you're supposed to act, when we give them opportunities to be in a place where there aren't expectations on how they have to do those things. It's amazing to see, like you said at the beginning, it shifts them out of that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And the more time that we can spend out of that, the more resilient, the more adaptable, the more
Mm.
flexible they will be in other environments. And that's what we want for our kids.
We forget how essential our environments are and how much they influence our nervous system state, consciously or not. I was talking to a functional neurologist named Dr. Robert Mullaloo in a summit I just did. This is a man who's working with children with neurodiversities, and he said that the environment is the single most important thing. How a child interacts with their environment is the single most important thing in their nervous system health and brain development. And I absolutely agree because we are always immersed in an environment of some sort. An environment is not neutral, right? It either is
No.
contributing to nervous system regulation or it's contributing to dysregulation. And it depends on that individual nervous system of your child or you. That's why it's so important to pay attention to our environments, what's in our environments, and how our environments are communicating with our nervous system. Are they triggering us or our children, or are they offering restoration for us? And the more nature there is, and this is proven by science, the more restorative an environment is. That's why I work with nature play.
I just had this conversation with a mom last week because so much in our culture, the conversation is around when your child is having a hard time, how do we fix the child? They need more intervention, they need more therapies, they need more of this. They have to be the one to change. And how actually, why don't we shift that conversation to how is their environment supporting them or not supporting them? Like, why
Yeah.
instead of blaming the child, why don't we look to our environments and that we have created environments that are so overstimulating that if you're processing more sensory information already and then you're in a hectic, overstimulated environment, of course you're going to struggle to regulate on your own. Of
Yep.
course you're not going to be able to organize all the sensory incoming information. And just getting out more into these kinds of environments and having more time where we're not so overstimulated and putting a high demand of regulation on children who are already struggling so much. I think it will be interesting to see that conversation shift and to create more environments and spaces that are accessible to people and have elements of nature in them. I'm just looking at both of us, and we both have huge live plants in our backyard.
Yep.
It makes a huge difference. I remember when my daughter was little, she loved getting in the plants. So I have lots of plants in my house, and she would have dirt everywhere. There was a part of me that was so furious out of the mess. And then there was a part of me as an OT that was like, this is so wonderful. Keep doing this.
Yeah.
And finding that that medium and that happy medium in between of what can work and what can't, but giving that
Yeah.
sensory regulation piece is huge.
It is. And going back to what you said, your conversation with the mom, what an unfair thing that many of us do to kids in expecting them to overcome environments like schools that are not set up to support everyone there. If you're a parent with a child who has to move their body, that classroom is not set up to fully support your kiddos. And so it is not their fault and it is not your
No.
fault for them struggling in an environment that doesn't support them. And again, that's why I love working with schools to create outdoor classrooms because so often I hear this without fail at every place I work with. Once the outdoor classroom is in, I come back and, how's everything working? And teachers inevitably say, I have a kid that struggles in the classroom. And when I take them outside, they are the leaders. It's a totally different kid. And it's a light bulb moment. Come on. We aren't meant to learn in that way, in that environment is so stimulating. It is so dysregulating. And we expect kids to, I don't know, we just box them in. Don't get me going on the school system.
Okay.
So
How
much
can
needs to
people
change
find
there.
you? Let's change directions then. How can people find you?
Sure.
How can people work with you? What kind of stuff do you do to help
Yeah.
families?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me. My business is called N is for Nature Play. Just Google that. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Just look for N is for Nature Play. And how I help parents, there's a couple of ways. One, of course, yes, I can work with you and create a design for your backyard or give you some recommendations for creating a space tailored to your child, what they love to do, and their sensory sensitivities and needs. Absolutely, I can help you there. But I can also help you learn a different way to view your child and how your child interacts with their outdoor space. So I teach people about children's 8 sensory systems from a nature play point of view, right? Like how to look at your outdoor space and recognize the sensory benefits it has, but also some sensory triggers it might have for your particular child. There's a whole educational component looking at your child from a new sensory perspective. This is where you and I overlap, Victoria, in such a beautiful way. And so there is a whole perspective shift that I offer parents and early childhood folks so that they can have the tools as their child grows to help their outdoor spaces evolve with the child. For my kids, for example, I had a mud kitchen. One of my daughters really loved to make things when she was 4, 5, 6 years old, but now she's 9, going on 10. She's wanting something different out of that space. And she decided last summer that she's going to turn her mud kitchen space into a habitat area. What does
Mhm.
that look like now? And how is she involved? I love getting the kids involved as well. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be, if you create a mud kitchen, it doesn't always have to be a mud kitchen. That space
Right.
will grow and evolve with your child's needs.
So cool. Okay, so do you have anything that you want to share with our guests or any
Oh,
resources?
absolutely. So I do have a couple of gifts. So one is it's a PDF download. It's called the 7 Senses Quick Start Guide. I know we talk about 8 sensory systems, but this really shares with parents more about the 7 sensory systems, the 5 plus the 2 movement-based systems, and what that looks like outside. How, if your child really loves to move, what are some activities or things that you can add to your space really easily that help them move their bodies in all sorts of different ways and really feed their systems? You can just go onto my website, wait a
Mhm.
moment, there's going to be a pop up where you can add your name and get the
Okay.
free download that way.
And
And
we'll
then,
add
of
that to the
course,
show notes too, so people can get the link
perfect.
easy.
Perfect. And then for those who are really interested in talking with me, I have a free one-on-one conversation that you can get on my calendar and we can talk
Okay.
about your child and how a natural play and learning little nook might look for them. So I invite anyone who's really interested to let's connect and talk more.
Awesome. Okay, the last thing, and probably one of the most important things that I ask everyone who comes on this podcast is if you could give encouragement to a mom who
Mhm.
is maybe fairly new on this journey, trying to figure all of the things out. She might be in burnout or struggling with like massive meltdowns. What would be one simple thing that you would say to her?
You're doing an amazing job. You're doing an amazing job. We can be so hard on ourselves and thinking we're not doing enough all the time. We're not doing enough. We're not doing enough of the right things. So first of all, I would say you're doing an amazing job. Your kid is so lucky to have you as their parent. The second thing I would say is to let go of the screens and whatever you're doing, you and your child go outside. Because if you're in burnout, if you're in overwhelm, they are too, maybe for different reasons. But when you go outside, balcony, doesn't matter. Kitchen window, planting a little cucumber seed, it doesn't matter. Taking a walk, playing with the hose. When you get outside with your child, both of you will be able to balance your nervous system so much more quickly. And you'll do that through connection as well, which is so much, it just adds the power to our time in nature when we can do it together.
Yeah.
Take your meal outside, take your snack outside, whatever you're doing, just take it outside. It's not any extra effort, and it has massive benefits for both of you.
Great. Thank you, Jenna, so much. I so appreciate this.
Oh, you're welcome, Victoria. I'm so happy to be on here with you.
That's it for this week's episode of the Sensory Savvy Mama. I hope you're walking away with some actionable tips and a renewed sense of hope for your journey. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. Your child is amazing, and you are the perfect mom for them. If you loved this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other moms like you find our community and lets us know what you want to hear. If you want to connect further, you can find us on Instagram or subscribe to our newsletter for inspiration, exclusive sensory tips, behind-the-scenes glimpses, and so you don't miss out on any new episodes. We are all in this together, Mama. I love you, and I'm so proud of you.